Welcome to Shadowland's Ghosts, a place where the ordinary and the unknown blend together in the most unexpected ways. I'm your host, Raven Blackwood, and I'm thrilled to have you join me on this journey into the shadows. As we sit here in the warm glow of our homes, surrounded by the comforts of everyday life, it's easy to forget that there are things that lurk just beyond the edge of our perception. Things that can make the familiar seem strange and the ordinary terrifying. I've always been fascinated by the stories that hide in the shadows, the ones that we whisper to each other in hushed tones, and the ones that we dare not speak aloud. And it's one of these stories that I want to share with you today. Imagine a child's laughter, a child's imagination, and a child's best friend. But what if that friend wasn't just a product of their imagination? What if it was something more? A presence that leaves its mark on the world in the most unexpected ways. In this story, we'll follow the journey of a child who's struggling to understand the truth about their imaginary friend. A friend that's leaving behind physical objects and blurring the lines between reality and fantasy. And as we delve deeper into this world, I want you to join me on this journey. Subscribe to Shadowland's Ghosts and become a part of our family. Together, we'll explore the shadows and uncover the secrets that lie within. And as you listen to this story, I want you to remember that it's not just a story. It's a tale told from the heart of the one who lived it. The lead character's perspective will guide you through the twists and turns and into the depths of their own terror. So, sit back, get comfortable, and let the shadows begin to whisper their secrets in your ear. I still remember the first time I saw Emily's drawings of Mr. Smiles. She was 4 years old then, with a mop of curly brown hair and eyes that sparkled like the stars on a clear night. Her laughter could light up a room, and her imagination was a never-ending well of creativity. As her mother, I was used to seeing her bring home all sorts of artwork from preschool, but there was something about Mr. Smiles that caught my attention. At first, I thought it was just another product of her vivid imagination, a friend she created to play with during the day. But as the days went by, I started to notice something strange. Emily would talk about Mr. Smiles as if he were a real person, someone who would play with her, have tea parties with her, and even go on adventures with her in the backyard. I remember one evening, as I was putting Emily to bed, she told me that Mr. Smiles had been in her room that day. She said he'd left her a little present, a small, shiny penny on her nightstand. I smiled and told her how sweet that was, but as I turned out the lights and closed the door, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It wasn't until the next morning, when I went to make breakfast, that I saw the penny for myself. It was sitting on the kitchen counter next to Emily's favorite cereal bowl. I picked it up, feeling a shiver run down my spine. It was just a penny, but it felt different. As if it had been handled by someone else, someone who didn't want me to know they'd been there. I pushed the thought aside, telling myself I was just being paranoid. But as the days went by, I started to notice more and more of these little presents from Mr. Smiles. A drawing on the fridge, a small toy on the couch cushions, a button on the floor. They were always little things, but they were always there, like a whisper in the darkness. And then, there were the changes in Emily's behavior. She would talk to herself more and more, as if she were having conversations with someone who wasn't there. She would laugh and play, but sometimes her laughter would be tinged with a hint of fear. And when I asked her about it, she would just smile and say that Mr. Smiles was playing a trick on her. As a mother, it's hard not to worry when you see your child's behavior changing like that. But I try to tell myself that it was just a phase that Emily was just going through a normal part of childhood development. But deep down, I knew that something was off. Something that I couldn't quite put my finger on. And then one night I saw it. I saw Mr. Smiles. Or at least I think I did. I was walking down the hallway, and I caught a glimpse of something out of the corner of my eye. It was tall and imposing, with eyes that seemed to glow in the dark. I spun around, but there was no one there. That's when I realized that Emily's imaginary friend might not be so imaginary after all. I tried to brush off the feeling of unease that lingered long after I saw it, whatever it was. But as the days went by, I started to notice more and more strange occurrences. Doors would creak open on their own, and the sound of faint whispers would echo down the hallway at night. At first, I thought it was just the wind or the house settling, but as time went on, I realized that the whispers sounded like a soft, raspy voice, speaking in a language I couldn't understand. Emily's behavior continued to change as well. She would become withdrawn and quiet, as if she were lost in thought. And when I asked her what was wrong, she would just shake her head and say that Mr. Smiles was being sad today. I tried to talk to her about it, to get her to open up, but she just wouldn't budge. One evening, as I was putting Emily to bed, I noticed that her room was filled with an eerie, pungent smell. It was like someone had poured a bottle of cheap perfume into the air, but it was sweet and cloying at the same time. I asked Emily if she knew what it was, but she just shook her head and said that Mr. Smiles must have brought it. As I turned out the lights and closed the door, I caught a glimpse of something on the wall. It was a drawing, done in crayon, of a tall, imposing figure with glowing eyes. The figure was surrounded by strange symbols and markings, and it seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy. I felt a chill run down my spine as I realized that Emily must have drawn it. I tried to shake off the feeling of unease, telling myself that it was just a child's imagination at work. But as I walked back downstairs, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The whispers seemed to be growing louder, and the air seemed to vibrate with an otherworldly energy. I stopped in my tracks, my heart pounding in my chest. And then I heard it. A low, raspy voice, speaking in a language I couldn't understand. It was coming from the living room, and it seemed to be getting louder. I turned around, my eyes scanning the room. And then I saw it. A figure, tall and imposing, with eyes that glowed like embers. It was standing in a corner of the room, watching me. I tried to scream, but my voice was frozen in my throat. The figure didn't move, but I could sense its malevolent presence. It was like a dark cloud had descended upon the room, suffocating me with its oppressive energy. I knew in that moment that I had to get out of there. I had to get Emily out of there. But as I turned to run, I felt a cold, clammy hand on my shoulder. I spun around, and that's when I saw Emily, her eyes black as coal, her skin deathly pale. She was smiling, but it wasn't her smile. It was Mr. Smile's smile. "Mommy," she said, her voice low and raspy. "I've been waiting for you." As I stood frozen in terror, Emily's eyes seemed to bore into my soul, her smile twisted and grotesque. The whispers in the hallway grew louder, swirling around me like a maelstrom of madness. I felt the weight of the figure's gaze upon me, its presence suffocating, crushing the air from my lungs. And then it hit me, the realization that I had been blind to the horror all along. Emily wasn't just drawn to Mr. Smiles. She was becoming him. The whispers, the drawings, the eerie smell, it was all a manifestation of the dark energy that had taken hold of her. The figure in the corner of the room didn't move, but its presence seemed to grow, spreading like a stain across the walls, infecting everything it touched. I knew that I was staring into the face of pure malevolence, an ancient evil that had been awakened by some unknown force. Emily's voice, low and raspy, sent shivers down my spine as she spoke again. "Mommy, I've been waiting for you." The words were laced with an otherworldly hunger, a craving that seemed to grow more intense by the second. I tried to push her away, but she didn't budge. Her eyes seemed to be pulling me in, drawing me into a world of madness and terror. The figure in the corner of the room began to move, its eyes blazing with an infernal energy. As I stumbled backward, tripping over my own feet, I saw the true horror. Emily's body began to contort, twisting into impossible shapes, her limbs elongating like a puppet on a string. The figure loomed over her, its presence merging with hers, creating a monstrosity that was both familiar and yet utterly alien. I knew, in that moment, that I was staring into the face of the abyss. The darkness that had taken hold of Emily was growing, spreading its tendrils into the world, and I was powerless to stop it. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of terror that threatened to consume me whole. As the figure's eyes blazed with an otherworldly energy, I knew that I had to escape, to flee from the horror that had taken hold of my child. But as I turned to run, I felt the cold, clammy hand on my shoulder, holding me back. The darkness closed in, a suffocating shroud that threatened to consume me whole. I was trapped, with no escape from the horror that had taken hold of my world. And as the figure's voice whispered in my ear, "You'll never leave," I knew that I was doomed to face the abyss, forever trapped in a world of unspeakable terror. As the darkness closed in, a suffocating shroud that threatened to consume me whole, I felt the cold, clammy hand on my shoulder, holding me back. I tried to shake it off, but it only tightened its grip, the fingers digging deep into my skin like icy talons. The whispers in the hallway grew louder, swirling around me like a maelstrom of madness, each voice screaming a different name, a different horror. I turned to face the figure, its eyes blazing with an otherworldly energy, the pupils burning with an infernal fire that seemed to pierce my soul. Emily's twisted smile seemed to grow wider, her teeth elongating into razor-sharp fangs, her eyes glowing with an unnatural hunger. The air was thick with an eerie smell, a stench of decay and rot that seemed to cling to my skin like a shroud. The figure's voice whispered in my ear, its words a cold, calculated cruelty that seemed to freeze my blood. "You'll never leave," it hissed, the breath cold and rank, like the stench of a charnel house. I felt a scream building in my throat, but it was trapped, frozen by the sheer horror of what I was witnessing. As I watched, Emily's body began to contort, twisting into impossible shapes, her limbs elongating like a puppet on a string. The figure loomed over her, its presence merging with hers, creating a monstrosity that was both familiar and yet utterly alien. I felt my mind reeling, my sanity teetering on the edge of collapse. And then, in a flash of insight, I saw the truth. The figure wasn't just a monster. It was a gateway, a portal to a realm of unspeakable horror. Emily was being consumed by it, her soul being dragged screaming into the abyss. I knew that I had to act, to save her from the clutches of the darkness that had taken hold of her. But as I reached out to grab her, the figure's hand closed around my wrist, its grip like a vice. I felt a searing pain, as if my skin was being flayed alive, and I knew that I was doomed. The darkness closed in, a suffocating shroud that threatened to consume me whole. I was trapped, with no escape from the horror that had taken hold of my world. The last thing I saw was Emily's twisted smile, her eyes glowing with an unnatural hunger. And then, the darkness closed in, and I was gone. The silence was absolute, a heavy stillness that seemed to press down on me like a physical force. I was trapped, lost in a world of unspeakable terror, forever bound to the horror that had taken hold of my child. And as the darkness closed in, I knew that I would never escape, that I would be trapped in this living nightmare, forever screaming, forever trapped in the abyss. As I emerged from the darkness, I found myself back in my own home, the silence oppressive and heavy. But it was not the same. The air was thick with an eerie presence, and I could feel the weight of the horror that had taken hold of Emily still lingering in the shadows. I stumbled through the empty halls, my heart pounding in my chest, searching for any sign of my child. But she was gone. The house was empty, the only sound the creaking of the wooden floorboards beneath my feet. I called out her name, but the only response was the echo of my own voice, bouncing off the walls. I stumbled into her room, and that was when I saw it. A drawing on the wall, in a child's handwriting, the words scrawled in red ink, "Mommy's home." I felt a chill run down my spine as I realized that Emily was still here, trapped in this house, forever bound to the horror that had taken hold of her. And then I heard the whisper, a soft, raspy voice that seemed to come from all around me. "You'll never leave." I spun around, but there was no one there. The voice seemed to be coming from inside my own head, echoing off the walls of my mind. I stumbled through the house, desperate to escape, but every door I opened led only to more rooms, more corridors, more shadows. I was trapped, forever lost in this labyrinth of horror, with no escape from the darkness that had taken hold of my child. And then I saw her. Emily was standing in the doorway, her eyes glowing with an unnatural hunger, her smile twisted and cruel. I tried to run, but my feet were rooted to the spot. She began to move towards me, her eyes fixed on mine, and I knew that I was doomed. The last thing I saw was her face, her eyes burning with an otherworldly energy, her smile growing wider and wider until it seemed to consume me whole. And then the darkness closed in, and I was gone. The silence was absolute, a heavy stillness that seemed to press down on me like a physical force. I was trapped, lost in a world of unspeakable terror, forever bound to the horror that had taken hold of my child. And as the darkness closed in, I knew that I would never escape, that I would be trapped in this living nightmare, forever screaming, forever trapped in the abyss. But the worst part was I wasn't alone. I could hear Emily's voice, whispering in my ear, "Mommy's home." And I knew that I would never be free. Epilogue: the silence after. The house stood vacant for years, its grandeur slowly being consumed by the passing of time. The once manicured lawn had grown wild, the paint chipped and faded. But it was the silence that seemed to be the most oppressive, a heavy stillness that hung in the air like a perpetual mist. People would whisper about the family that had lived there, how they had vanished in a thin air, leaving behind only the faintest hint of their presence. Some said they saw Emily's ghostly figure in the windows, her eyes glowing with an otherworldly energy. Others claimed to have heard the sound of a child's laughter, echoing through the empty halls. But one thing was certain, the house was never the same. The horror that had taken hold of Emily still lingered, a malevolent presence that seemed to seep into the bones of anyone who dared to enter. Years turned into decades, and the legend of the house grew. People would dare each other to spend a night within its walls, but none ever returned. The house remained a monolith to the terror that had taken hold of the family, a constant reminder that some horrors are forever bound to the places they inhabit. And then, one day, a group of brave souls decided to explore the abandoned house. They entered with flashlights and cameras, ready to capture evidence of the paranormal activity. But as they delved deeper into the depths of the house, they stumbled upon something that made their blood run cold. In the room where Emily had drawn her final message, they found a new drawing, scrawled in the same red ink. The words were simple, yet chilling. "I've been waiting." The group froze, their hearts pounding in unison, as they realized that the horror was not just a memory, but a living, breathing entity that still lingered in the shadows. The group never left the house. They were never seen again. But the legend of the house lived on, a cautionary tale about the horrors that can take hold of the places we call home. And if you listen closely on quiet nights, you can still hear Emily's whisper, echoing through the empty halls. "Mommy's home." Wow, we've reached the end of this haunting tale, and I want to extend my sincerest gratitude to each and every one of you for joining me on this journey. Your engagement and enthusiasm have meant the world to me, and I'm honored to have been able to share this chilling story with you all. As we conclude this series, I want to leave you with a sense of excitement and anticipation for what's to come. If you've enjoyed the thrill and suspense of this story, I invite you to subscribe to our channel for more spine-tingling content. From horror stories to paranormal investigations, we got a wide range of topics that are sure to keep you on the edge of your seat. By subscribing to our channel, you'll not only be supporting our content creators, but also getting access to exclusive content, behind-the-scenes insights, and early updates on our latest projects. Plus, you'll be joining a community of like-minded individuals who share your passion for the unknown and the unexplained. So, what are you waiting for? Click that subscribe button now and join the thousands of viewers who have already become part of our community. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. And as a special thank you to our loyal viewers, we've included a link to our exclusive bonus content in the description below. This bonus content is only available to our subscribers, so be sure to check it out and share it with your friends and family. Once again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon to turn on notifications, so you can stay up to date on all our latest content. Let's keep exploring the unknown together.